I set out to do the impossible. Simultaneously hold the world record speedruns for every raid boss with zero. No glitches, no exploits, just raw skill. At first I didn't think I was capable of pulling it off. Somehow I did. But not before almost giving up. Not before hundreds of hours and 1,000 failed runs. Along the way I learned a lot about perseverance, the dangers of doubt, and the importance of self-belief. There were moments where I wanted to quit. Moments I thought, this is it, this is where I fell. But no matter what, I always found a way to win. The journey even helped pull me out of a depressive episode. This is the story of how I surpassed my idols and got every single zero raid boss speedrun world record. The raid bosses of Borderlands 2 aren't just enemies. They're gods, demons, reapers that break even full teams of highly geared players. But I wasn't trying to survive. I wanted to beat them all faster than anyone ever had. Faster even than Salvador Main's farming unkempt heralds. And one final flex before we begin, I did it all with a controller, not a keyboard and mouse. Chapter 1, Humble Beginnings.
Gory bloody death. Just the way that I like it. I'm not bad at this.
My journey started out unassumingly enough. Actually, it was kind of an accident. See, in the beginning, I didn't really like speedrunning. The idea of running fights over and over again, restarting when something went wrong, just wasn't fun to me. I already get the experience of repeatedly failing at life on a daily basis, no reason to amplify that, especially when RNG was a big factor in most of these fights. Unlike most players, I actually love raiding in this game, and just the challenging nature of Borderlands 2 itself. I would rather just fight through mistakes and try to get the win. I also didn't really consider myself good enough to get world record times. I thought I was a very good zero player, but a step behind the best. But I wanted to dip my toe in speedrunning waters, at first only to demonstrate how effective Zero is at quickly killing raid bosses. So about 8 months ago, I uploaded my first speedrunning video called Speedrunning 8 OP10 Raids in 5 minutes. It was nothing too crazy, just some decent times demonstrating Zero's raiding capabilities, both legitimately and with glitches. It ended up being pretty fun to make, but like with all of my speedrunning videos, it underperformed, and so I didn't really give it any more thought. The only fight I seriously tried speedrunning at this point was my favorite fight, the Ancient Dragons of Destruction. I mostly just did this because I had a lot of fun with the fight and wanted a reason to fight them more. I ended up getting a time of 1 minute and 15 seconds, which was third place behind Mostly Childish at 1 minute and 12 seconds, and Rain Bubble in first place at 1 minute 4 seconds. At the time I assumed this was the best I could do, so as a casual speedrunner I was pretty happy. But if my speedrunning journey didn't truly start there, where did it? Well, this is what I meant by it being accidental. When I first realized I had world record potential, I was actually just working on a video farming all the unique drops for Terramorphous. I was using my legitimate zero, meaning I didn't have perfect gear and I wasn't really trying to speedrun. But I actually ended up getting a 36-second kill, which was only 2 seconds behind Rain Bubble's world record of 34 seconds. I realized that if I had been using perfect gear and I had been really locked in, I definitely would have gotten my first world record. I ended up coming down with a really bad flu, and I mean really bad. It was genuinely the most sick I have ever felt in my entire life, and I've been sick a lot. I'll spare you the gory details, but it wasn't fun and I was bedridden a lot. Although I was exhausted, I was in so much pain I couldn't sleep, so I ended up just doing a ton of speedruns of Terramorphous to distract myself. I came to realize I actually really liked the process of speedrunning when I was running content I actually enjoyed, raid bosses in this case. It also helps that most of the raid bosses have good loot, so there are very tangible rewards for running them. I love the learning process of optimizing every second you could, of coming up with better strategies to beat other people's times, and to get the fastest run possible. For Terramorphous, I realized I could enter the arena with a grenade stockpile relic, allowing me to throw extra slag grenades. Because the timer doesn't start until the name of the raid boss appears on screen, this didn't cost me any time. I even realized I could start using a grenade with a longer fuse time, allowing me to throw grenades early before Terramorphous spawned, and then swap to a 0 fuse time grenade for immediate use during the fight. I also discovered I could get the fastest possible kill times by fully speccing into Two Fang and Velocity, which was generally considered to be a bad idea. But by maintaining the proper distance, using Velocity allows you to get the Lyota's pellets to split right on Terra's crit spots, dealing massive damage. By having perfect positioning, keeping Terramorphous slagged and deathmarked, having good aim, and fully speccing into Two Fang, I was able to shatter the previous record of 34 seconds and attain my first world record speedrun by soloing Terramorphous in just 19 seconds and 23 frames, even killing him in just 2 rises. As I mentioned, all of these runs will be without using glitches, exploits, or pre-stacking critical ascension, so getting a 19-second kill legitimately felt amazing. And a quick note before moving on, all of my records will be formatted in minutes, seconds, frames, with frames being measured at 60 per second. And I should mention, these speedruns are the world records across all categories. What I mean by that is, Zero speedrunning is divided into melee and gun categories, but these runs are the fastest you will find regardless of category, the fastest overall. I'm going to rate each of these raid bosses on a scale for how fun they are and how difficult they are. Terramorphous is one of my favorite fights in the game. For fun, I'd give him a 9 out of 10. I can run this fight over and over and it never gets boring. It's very challenging, it requires precision, and Terramorphous has several good drops, such as the teeth and hide of Terramorphous and the pitchfork. For how challenging the fight is, Zero specifically is very good at it once you learn it. I'd probably rate the difficulty a 7 out of 10, although for non-Zero characters it is actually one of the hardest fights in the game in my opinion. Probably more like a 9 out of 10. But that's Terramorphous the Invincible, eliminated. Having secured my first world record, I had more confidence now. I knew I had the potential to get others. However, at the time my channel was brand new. It's still in diapers now at only 8 months old. But I was wanting to diversify my content and make raiding videos for Maya and Axton, as well as doing weapon reviews and build videos. I did go ahead and speedrun Vermivorous, just because I knew it would be easy to get the world record. Since Zero can boar kill Vermi, most people just do that. Giantfly had the best time I could find for a glitchless Vermivorous kill with Zero on OP10, which was around 2 minutes. I was able to finish him in just 28 seconds and 49 frames, although my run was far from optimized. I mostly just benefited from getting excellent behavior out of Vermivorous, as he simply stood with his butt facing me, allowing me to crit him over and over with a standard B-Hawk setup. And now is a good time to mention that RNG is a factor in all of these fights, some more than others. But before even attempting to speedrun, you simply have to accept that many runs will fail due to bad RNG. I just happened to get good RNG this time, but don't worry, I'll get plenty of bad RNG down the road. The lack of challenge in obtaining my second world record made for quite a hollow victory, but nonetheless, I now had 2 world records proving I could replicate my success. Vermivorous is a pretty boring and easy raid boss, he just takes forever to spawn, although the creature dome is the easiest way to do so. That's also probably the easiest place to fight him as you have access to cover and second winds. Vermivorous gets a 3 out of 10 for both fun factor and difficulty. That's Vermivorous the Invincible, eliminated. After the Vermi record, I stopped speedrunning for a while and just focused on growing my channel with other content. I made a lot of build videos, weapon reviews, guides, normal raid bossing videos, and even did a challenge run where I beat OP10 with no slag, no red text gear, and no bar. Only about a month ago did I get the urge to start seriously speedrunning again. And that brings us to Chapter 2, Many Must Fall.
This is how you die. A spectacle of violence, gorgeous and ugly.
At this point, I didn't just believe. I knew I could get more world records. I started to realize just how important self-belief was. I was actually playing better, shrugging mistakes off more easily. The first target of this new mindset? Pyro Pete, the Ultra Invincible. Wow, I admire the confidence, Pete, but you're basically the raid boss tutorial. If Jake Paul called out raid bosses instead of retired MMA fighters, you'd be the first on the list. Honestly, just getting to Pete through the beatdown is more dangerous. But hey, maybe I'm being hypocritical. Maybe he recently discovered the power of self-belief too. Heading into this fight, Rainbubble held the world record. He's an extremely talented Zero player, so I knew his time would be hard to beat. I was confident I could do it with enough effort though. His strategy was to summon Pete, run up to him and throw his decoy to keep Pete in place, then slag and deathmark him. Doing this will allow you to shoot Pete's face shield off with a single well-placed round from the Amigo Sincero. From that point, you just want to get as many stacks of critical ascension as possible while Pete walks towards you. Using the Chaotic Neutral Rogue maximizes CA gains here. You can then equip a Chaotic Evil Rogue off the ground for the extra critical hit damage. Following this script, Rainbubble was able to kill Pete in a record 35.8 seconds. I knew using his exact strategy and just trying to execute better would be very difficult, especially considering I play with a controller. I had a feeling from the Terramorphous fight that Two Fang was not being utilized fully in Zero speedruns. It worked for Terramorphous, so I figured it could work here too. However, there was an issue. Speccing into Two Fang will allow you to fire faster, but at the cost of stacking CA slower, as you usually are not able to gain stacks of critical ascension with a Two Fang proc. There are exceptions where you can, such as when using the elephant gun. I covered this phenomenon in that video if you want to see that, but this created a paradox. I needed to dish out as much damage as possible with the help of Two Fang, but I also needed to get as many stacks of critical ascension as possible during Pete's walking phase. I then had an idea. I could put only 1 point into Two Fang. When using my chaotic neutral rogue, I wouldn't boost Two Fang at all. However, with the chaotic evil rogue on the ground, I used a version that did boost it. This strategy allowed me to maximize critical ascension gains early on, and then pump out as much damage as possible once I equipped the evil rogue. This strategy paid off as I was able to slay Pete in just 34 seconds and 21 frames, claiming my 3rd world record. That said, there is definitely room for improvement here. I think sub 30 seconds is possible, and down the road I plan on coming back and trying to beat some of my records. But using my limited time to try to beat my own world records when I could be going for others instead wasn't really something I wanted to do. Pete is a very fun fight though. He gets an 8 out of 10. He's just a little less engaging because he's so easy. But for Zero, he's really not difficult at all. Probably about a 2 out of 10 once you know what you're doing. But anyway, that's Pyro Pete the Invincible, eliminated. Next up was Haderax, the worm god with a severe case of hyperdontia. Bro literally has teeth growing out the top of his head. I guess even gods can't afford healthcare these days. Lazy Data held the world record at 6 seconds. Actually, we need to quickly talk about when the timer actually starts. There is debate about whether the timer should start when the name appears on screen or the red dot. Myself and Lazy Data prefer going by the name because you can manipulate when the red dot appears. However, to be safe, I did beat both times. When going by the red dot, Stormy Sniper had the world record at about 4.2 seconds. Going into this fight, I wasn't sure how much room there was to optimize since the fight was so short and other runners already had nearly perfect runs. Not going to be discouraged though, I just started doing runs myself. I quickly realized one area I could optimize. Doing the same trick I used with Terramorphous, where I use a slag crossfire grenade with a longer fuse time to anticipate slagging the boss after they spawned, I was able to save time by not having to throw a grenade at Haderax. I could just throw my grenades early, get into position, and just focus on shooting. From there, it was just a matter of getting the perfect positioning, having perfect enough aim to drop Haderax as quickly as humanly possible, and fast enough reactions to efficiently melt him. It didn't take long for me to claim my 4th world record, slaying Haderax in just 5 seconds and 7 frames going by the name, or 3 seconds and 52 frames going by the red dot. Haderax is a very fun fight for me. I'd give him an 8 out of 10 for fun factor. Once you understand what you need to do, Haderax is arguably the easiest raid boss in the game. You can kill him almost immediately. On the other hand, if you can't, he can kill you much more easily than Pete can. I think you can make an argument for either one of them being the easiest raid boss. But assuming you know what you're doing, I'd give Haderax a 3 out of 10 for difficulty, just because he can actually kill you pretty easily if you make mistakes, unlike Pyro Pete. That's Haderax the Invincible, eliminated. Then, we had to take on the big meaty claws of the invincible son of Crawmerax the Invincible. His claws aren't just for attracting a mate, you know. Stormy Sniper held the world record for this speedrun at 2 minutes, 9 seconds, and 46 frames. Watching his run, I didn't really see much room for a better strategy or build. It seemed this would be the first raid boss where I simply needed to execute someone else's strategy, but better. So that's exactly what I did. The shot conference call with the B-Shield makes quick work of Crawmerax, or at least it would, but Gearbox's immunity phase fetish is on full display. I only actually damaged Crawmerax for 16 seconds. The entire rest of the fight is just avoiding mobs while you wait for Craw to finish dicking around underground and emerge from his immunity phase. If you want a tip for beating this time, you could actually get a faster time by only relying on your grenades for slagging. The problem is, Crawmerax is so resistant to slag, it will take you an insane amount of runs to get lucky enough to keep him slagged with only grenades. By using the Slag Pimpernel, I can guarantee slag at the cost of a bit more time. But as I said, RNG is a factor in all of these fights to varying degrees. Speedrunning requires being able to recover quickly from those disappointing runs. You will have incredible runs that end up failing due to bad RNG or a mistake on your part, and that can be really demoralizing if you aren't mentally prepared. After finally waiting out the immunity phases, I claimed my 5th straight world record, killing the son of Crawmerax in 2 minutes, 8 seconds, and 13 frames. Crawmerax is moderately fun. A few adjustments could make the fight more enjoyable, such as tweaking the immunity phases in a way to make them more engaging, like forcing the player to find the Vincible grandson of Crawmerax the Invincible and kill him to end the immunity phase. For fun, I give him a 5 out of 10. He is fairly difficult. I'd rank him a 7 out of 10 difficulty-wise, because if you aren't careful, you can get cornered or the mobs can overwhelm you. He can also apply Corrosive Dot if you don't have the right immunity. But anyway, that's the Invincible son of Crawmerax the Invincible eliminated. Following this, I was on to the most boring raid boss in the game, Dexiduous the Invincible. Dexy is actually the hardest raid boss in the game to not take a nap while fighting anyway. Because you can only damage his boils, which take forever to spawn, you will be spending massive chunks of this fight doing literally nothing, just waiting around running out the clock like you're at the doctor's office. Except instead of sick people coughing on you, giant monsters, witch doctors, and savages are trying to decapitate you. And hopefully you don't get the annoying ass 2-legged drifter spawns. These guys deserve the title of the Invincible more than Dexiduous himself, who is actually a massive pushover. Dexy possesses only a singular threatening attack, the Poison Bomb, which is mostly negated if you have a corrosive immunity on your shield. Honestly, the waves of savages you have to fight before Dexy spawns are the biggest challenge here. Dogaby, another very talented Zero player, previously held the world record for this fight at around 4 minutes and 45 seconds, I believe. There is actually an exploit you can do here where you die over and over to Dexiduous to force him to spawn more boils, but that's outside the scope of an exploitless run in my opinion. Plus, to tell you the truth, I don't even know how to do that glitch. I'm assuming it involves just repeatedly rushing at Dexy so he kills you over and over, and somehow that makes him spawn more boils. But if you want to know who has the world record utilizing that method, it's Abrupt Dusty at 29 seconds. I just personally feel like doing an exploit like that in an exploitless run is against the spirit of what I'm doing. There wasn't much room to improve Dogaby's strategy. The best bet is just to shoot Dexy with the Lady Bee, so that's what I did. The RNG in this fight comes down to what kind of mob spawn and how cooperative Dexiduous feels. Sometimes a boil spawns in a tough spot, or Dexy just runs away, or worse, he twerks in place so you can't hit anything. But Dexy does have some perks. The easiest way to spawn Triple O is by abusing the final wave of savages before Dexy shows up. I'll link to Mr. TX01's video on this. Pro tip, fast travel to Candlerax Crag first to trigger a glitch that adds the interfacer to Triple O's loot pool. Dexiduous also has a 1.5% chance to drop a Hawkeye or an interfacer, and a 33% chance to drop the chopper. I have a video covering the chopper. It actually does great damage. Sure, it empties its load in just a few seconds, but hey, we've all been there, haven't we? Yes, I reused that joke from my short, sue me. Eventually, I managed to kill Dexy in 4 minutes, 16 seconds, and 33 frames. Wow, that's it? People say microwave minutes are long. Nah, Dexiduous minutes are the longest in existence. Dexiduous the Invincible? Eliminated. The next foe my blade longs for? Master Yi. At this point, most of the remaining fights take 10 to 20 minutes to speedrun, making them not only tests of speed and skill, but also of endurance. When repeatedly doing such tough fights, which require you to be so locked in, you can quickly become mentally fatigued when things go wrong. To defeat Yi legitimately, you have to kill the sandworms that spawn and force Yi to absorb the acid pulls. You actually can't damage him yourself at all until his first shield is gone, and even then it isn't really worth it because he has so much health. This fight is a lot of fun though. I really like the core mechanic, but some typical Gearbox magic hurts the fight. For one, Master Yi has forced 4-player scaling, meaning he has 4 times the health he should if you're a solo player. That's what makes this fight take so long. Another issue is, if you get too close to a sandworm, they will repeatedly burrow, and this messes up their hit detection sometimes. And if you get downed, good luck, it's basically game over because, again, the sandworms will burrow over and over, giving you basically no chance to kill them. But this fight is honestly a ton of fun with Melee Zero. Mini Must Fall is excellent for this fight, because what it will allow you to do is to kill a sandworm, then your second decoy will spawn on its corpse, which will prompt Master Yi to run over and melee it. Master Yi usually takes a knee after a melee attack, so this is an easy way to get him to absorb acid pulls without even using grenades. Dogaby previously held the world record for this fight at 9 minutes 45 seconds. I knew it would be tough to beat his time, but nothing could stop my momentum now. It could be slowed down though. This is another fight where there wasn't much room to strategize, I would just have to execute better. At least that's what I thought until my journey was nearly complete, but more on that later. So if you're watching this video, you have the benefit of knowing things that took me hours of attempts to realize. I have at this point basically created the single greatest resource for Zer0 speedrunners in existence. In this case, I had 2 incredible runs, which were basically flawless. I didn't mess up a single time, and I didn't take a single corrosive dot, which is a huge issue in this fight. You have to avoid getting hit by the sandworms because they will often apply a corrosive damage over time, which will probably kill you, but at the very least will slow you down. With these said perfect runs, I still was somehow behind Dogaby. I couldn't figure out how I played pretty much perfectly and still only got a time of 9 minutes and 46 seconds, one behind him. After analyzing the runs, I realized that sometimes the first sandworm did not spawn on time. He's supposed to spawn in about 5 seconds. In my best run, it took him almost 16 seconds to spawn. This was all it took to deny my world record. Had he spawned on time, I would have a time of 9 minutes 35 seconds, which would be virtually unbeatable. But alas, I didn't realize this at the time, so my world record run was actually quite a bit worse. I made more mistakes, but simply because the sandworm spawned on time, I was able to get a kill time of 9 minutes and 42 seconds, securing my 7th straight world record. But the funny thing is, I actually realized after the fact a much easier way to do this fight. So stick around to the end if you want to basically learn the secret that will allow you to beat my run that took me many more hours to realize, and has massive ramifications for Melee Zer0 in general. With fights this long, I won't be able to show the full fights, but I will have them uploaded as separate videos. For fun factor, like I said, I do actually really enjoy this fight. It's mostly just the 4 times health that holds it back. As is, I'd give Master Gi a 6 out of 10 for fun factor. But if he had the right amount of health, it would be like a 9 out of 10. For difficulty factor, it depends. You can actually kill Master Gi by just making him absorb a single acid pull and hiding behind a rock at the start. If you consider that a legit kill, he's basically the easiest raid boss in the franchise. But if you engage the full fight as intended, he's extremely difficult, just because a single mistake will often result in death and the fight takes so long. I'd give him an 8 out of 10 for difficulty. And that's Master Gi the Invincible, eliminated. Next up was a pretty similar fight, Hyperius the Invincible. Like Master Gi, Hyperius has forced 4-player scaling.
But wait, there's more.
The OP10 update also bugged Hyperius, giving him twice the amount of health he's supposed to have. Epic. Nothing like fighting a super boss that is designed to be nearly impossible as a baseline, then has 800% increased health because of glitches. Whatever, glitch him till he has 10,000% health. I'll still find a way to beat him. Rain Bubble previously held the world record for this fight at 11 minutes 22 seconds. He primarily used the Love Thumper, strafing around Hyperius and his bots, then coming in with executes when Deception was ready, and occasionally trying to slag Hyperius with grenades. At first, I just tried to copy his strategy, but somehow he was outpacing me a lot. I rewatched his run, paying more attention this time, and I realized he was letting the bots hit him to try to proc Counter-Strike, which increases melee damage by 250%. But at this point, I decided to try something different. In my original Hyperius solo, I killed 3 of the bots first to clear the way for repeated melee attacks. If you don't, the bots will all just overwhelm you, and if you kill all 4, Hyperius will go into rage mode. So by leaving 1 alive, you have more breathing room, but Hyperius won't go into rage mode until he's in killing blow range. However, this strategy just did not work because the time it takes to kill the bots is longer than the time it saves in the long run. But I knew my grenade wasn't really doing much. Sure, it could occasionally slag Hyperius before you had to swap to a Chain Lightning to let it regen, but that wasn't very reliable. I considered using the Hide of Terramorphous and just using my grenade to strip my shield, but that was before I came up with an even better idea. By using the Love Thumper, I could free up my grenade slot for a Singularity Grenade. I could then just repeatedly pull the bots away from Hyperius when they got too close, clearing a path and allowing me to land a ton of melee attacks, without having to waste time killing the bots. Using this new method, and taking what I learned from the Terramorphous fight, starting the fight with extra slag grenades to keep Hyperius slagged for extra burst damage in the beginning, I was able to beat Rainbubble's time of 11 minutes 23 seconds by over 2 minutes, slaying Hyperius in just 9 minutes 14 seconds and 12 frames. This was despite the fact that this run really wasn't very optimal and I botched the ending. This new method was just that good. Hyperius is actually a pretty fun fight with Melee Zero. Just similar to Master Gi, the insanely bloated health hurts the fight a lot. As is, I would give the fight a 5 out of 10 for fun factor, but if Hyperius had the right amount of health, it would be like an 8 out of 10. Difficulty wise, it's kinda hard to judge. Hyperius actually isn't too hard with Melee Zero, you just have to be sure not to make any mistakes since the fight is so long. But I'd give Hyperius a 7 out of 10 for difficulty, at least for Melee Zero. Anyway, that's Hyperius the Invincible eliminated. That's 8 raid bosses defeated, 8 world records obtained. I felt unstoppable. I accomplished every goal I set so far, and I knew I wasn't leaving without the heads of the dragons and Voracidous. At least, that's how I felt going into the fights. Chapter 3, The Shadow of Doubt.
I have made a fatal error.
In the depths of the lair of infinite agony lies the winged storm. Not just a place, but a promise, or a threat. Here roost the ancient dragons of destruction, and never doubt it, they've earned their namesake. One of the hardest fights in the entire franchise, this encounter forces you to face 4 devastating dragons, each with unique abilities, all at once. If you've ever regretted trying to solo group-oriented content, it's now. While every raid boss is tough to solo, the ancient dragons are a special breed of hell dragons. Being targeted by 4 enemies at once often just means instant death. No mistake, no learning opportunity, just deletion. And if the raw difficulty wasn't enough, the fight is also by far the most RNG heavy in the game. How often they attack, whether they land, how they fly, if they glitch out, the dots they apply, it all stacks against you. Rainbubble once again held the world record here, 64 seconds. A run that was not only nearly perfect in execution, but also benefited from incredibly favorable RNG. You could go 100 runs and never see dragon behavior that clean. I had run after run that was nearly perfect, only to fail from bad RNG, a random glitch, or one tiny mistake. Dozens of runs turned into hundreds, and I was no closer to my goal. This was the first time I seriously questioned whether I could do this. My mental state was already in rough shape, and I hadn't even reached the worst of it. At the ends of the earth, and the limits of even the best players, lurks a creature so fearsome, even the very sky above him weeps. God of gods, demon of demons, reaper of reapers. Once every other mountain has been climbed, once all your skills are sharpened to a bleeding edge, you may enter the aptly named Rage Cage. Here, in his happy place, Voracidous kills more than time. Only the very best can even dream of challenging this twisted deity. Or maybe just the most stupid. I've beaten a lot of hard content in my day. The pantheons of Hollow Knight with bindings, the Data Org fights in Kingdom Hearts 2 critical mode, I've soloed EX Deviant multi-monster quests and old school Monster Hunter back when single-player scaling didn't exist. All of them, combined, didn't demand what Voracidous does. A performance that would easily slay any other raid boss will only bloody the nose of Voracidous. He's fast, he hits hard and frequently, he's tanky, every 13 seconds he releases back-to-back novas that instantly healthgate you, and as if Voracidous is shouting a giant "fuck you" directly at the player, he has glitched double health. But wait, there's more.
That ain't enough?
He can randomly kill you through Healthgate, and while he isn't as glitchy as the dragons, sometimes he will glitch out making your run fail. Finally, as the fight progresses, there's a bit of lag when Voracidous does his novas. It's just enough to sometimes throw you off, making you miss a hill swap or just get disoriented. What all of this together means is that to defeat him, you have to be perfect for 20 plus minutes, and sometimes even perfection is not enough to win. Warshot held the world record at 22 minutes. I tried everything I could do to beat it. New strategies, hours of practice, dozens of nearly flawless runs, and every time, glitches or one tiny mistake stopped me. I even realized I could actually use a Hive of Terramorphous instead of a Love Thumper. It was typically thought that you needed a shock immunity to safely strip a Roid shield, but I realized you can actually safely strip your shield even without a shock immunity as long as your Chain Lightning is a lower level and you do it while holding the Grog nozzle. This discovery meant I could use a Hive of Terramorphous with a corrosive immunity to survive Vora's corrosive dots. Now, with a much stronger method, I had no problem beating Borshot's time. At least that's what I thought, until I checked the actual time. 22 minutes and 55 seconds. Somehow, even with more damage, I had lost by almost 1 minute. I couldn't understand how. I even added up every single execute Borshot and I landed to track who was outpacing who. It just didn't make sense. I should have been comfortably ahead. This is when the bargaining started to set in. I told myself, well, 8 out of 10 is still a great accomplishment. It's more than anyone else has. People don't really care about raid boss speedruns in this community anyway. Why are you putting in so much effort for something with no return? My speedrun videos, even my world records, are consistently my worst performing videos. But at this point, it wasn't just the game getting to me. You can definitely tell in some of my past videos that my depression was bleeding through. I'd been dealing with constant neck and back pain for over a year, and just a lot of other personal issues. For most of that time, I was told it was just anxiety or bad posture, but the pain kept getting worse. And honestly, I didn't want to keep pushing the issue. I've been working hard to stay sober for years now, but I've had issues with substance abuse in the past, and I was afraid they'd label me as drug seeking. Eventually, I bugged them enough until they did an x-ray, and they basically said, guess it wasn't bad posture. You have cervical spondylosis. Basically wear and tear of the vertebrae that is more expected with older people, but not someone as young as me. Since you're a peasant who can't afford an MRI, there's nothing you can do. We can't write you anything stronger than Tylenol to help you with the pain, not even a muscle relaxer to help with the neck tightness, migraines, and nerve pain. And you know that one thing that still really sparks joy in your brain? Running? You probably can't do that anymore. Around this time is when I had that 2-week gap not uploading any videos. I had just lost all my motivation to keep working on the channel, or do anything, really. So while I was already dealing with everything going on in real life, realizing I'd come this far and still wasn't good enough, it hit harder than I expected. But something in me still wasn't ready to quit. I decided to go back to the dragons one more time. This time, I tried to adapt the strategy I used on Pyro Pete. I put a single point into Two Fang, then swapped to a class mod that boosted it right before engaging the final dragon. Just like before, the idea was simple. Build up critical ascension as fast as possible, then cash in with a massive burst of damage using Two Fang. I added a couple more optimizations too. You can actually farm CA stacks by shooting Helianth before he lands, and I noticed Rain Bubble didn't tag Incinerator before he covered up, which cost him some stacks. If I did both of those and used the Two Fang swap, I thought I had a real shot, but after dozens of attempts, I still wasn't making progress. Actually, this method sorta made things worse, because it increased the chances of Helianth bugging out and flying off into random directions. Hundreds of runs, and I still couldn't get the record for the dragons or Voracidous. I was done. Until one tiny decision in each fight changed everything. Chapter 4, Critical Ascension.
I will not die here. I have too much left to do, and too much ammo.
At my wit's end after a long night of attempts, I told myself I would do 10 more and then go to bed. The first run failed immediately, but the second, everything was going perfectly. I got 10 stacks of critical ascension before Helianth even landed, which he did without issue. My positioning was nearly perfect. Helianth died almost immediately, and most importantly, I finally got the god tier RNG I needed to stand a chance. Boost 2 landed immediately, and I was able to keep my B shield up. Once again, my positioning was locked in. Boost fell in seconds. Then Brood landed immediately. She fell almost instantly. Here, I ran into a bit of trouble though. One of these walking contraceptive ads was harassing me, and Incinerator set the panel I needed to move through on fire. But when it mattered most, After hundreds of failed attempts, after doubt had consumed me, after I almost gave up, my optimizations and two-fang swap method finally paid off. I locked in and killed Incinerator in less than 2 seconds, granting me a kill time of 1 minute, 3 seconds, and 47 frames. I realized a sub 60-second kill was possible. Finally, I had done it. After reaching my breaking point and almost giving up, the decision to do 10 more runs before calling it quits made all the difference. The Ancient Dragons are actually my favorite raid boss in the game, even though they cause me a lot of pain. They are just horrible to speedrun because of how RNG dependent they are. Fun-wise, they're a 9 out of 10, with only the glitches holding them back. Difficulty-wise, for most characters, they are a 10 out of 10. Sniper Zero can make quick work of them when you know what you're doing though, so for him I'd rank them an 8 out of 10. At long last, I could finally say, Ancient Dragons of Destruction, eliminated. Now I was literally 90% of the way to my goal. My confidence returned. I could feel the skill returning to my body. I believed. I knew no matter what, I would find a way to beat Voracidous. I fully watched my run of 22 minutes and 55 seconds. I realized that I had played incredibly well, but I had made way more mistakes towards the end of the fight than I had originally realized. This was actually great news because it meant I had identified the issue. I was making mistakes, so all I had to do to get the record was play better in the end stage. It wasn't RNG, it was in my control. My method was working. I even compared the progression of health bar depletion with my runs against bore shots, and I realized even on my failed runs I was outpacing him. So all I had to do was get one successful run with my new method without dying or missing a ton of attack windows and the record was mine. I even realized another optimization I could make. I lost quite a bit of time to inventory management because I was swapping gear so much. When I was out of grenades to strip my shield with, I would have to swap to a Love Thumper, then back when they regen. I had to swap to a Lethal Ninja once Vora was in killing blow range, and if my ammo got too low I had to swap to a hard Unkempt Herald for less consumption. So I decided to stage the area. In each corner of the room I dropped a set of Love Thumpers, Hides of Terramorphous, Lethal Ninjas, and hard Unkempt Heralds. Doing it this way allowed me to save time on inventory management, and it meant no matter where I ended up in this fight, I had access to the gear I needed. Even still, there was a reason I was making so many mistakes. There was a massive amount of pressure on me. This wasn't just for a legit Voracidous kill, which is extremely hard to do. It wasn't just for another world record, which is incredibly hard to do. It was for all the marbles. This kill was the final piece I needed to complete what once felt like an impossible goal far beyond my skills. Obtaining every single raid boss world record speedrun with Zero. But I locked in. I trusted myself, my methods. I shrugged off failed attempts. I told myself nothing would stop me. And before long, Voracidous was in killing blow range. Then finally, it was time for the final blow. It was time to end this. Every moment of doubt, all the ups and downs, all the strategizing, outlasting RNG, executing flawlessly, it all came down to one final killing blow. One small swing for Zero, one massive leap for my goals. Finally, I had done it. Voracidous had fallen to my new method in just 21 minutes, 6 seconds, and 3 frames, beating Boreshot's world record by nearly 1 minute. It probably goes without saying, but for difficulty, Voracidous breaks the scale. You really can't give him a meaningful score that represents how hard he is in comparison to other bosses. But if I had to, he would be a 100 out of 10. For fun factor, he's just insufferable without making any adjustments. I'd give him a 1 out of 10 on that front. Finally, that's Voracidous the Invincible eliminated, and my 10th and final world record obtained. Thanks for coming along on this journey. Honestly, at the start, I didn't think I was good enough to pull this off. There were so many moments where I doubted myself, felt like giving up, and wondered if it was even possible. But with persistence, I made it through. Accomplishing this goal didn't solve all of my problems, but it really did pull me out of a dark place. I don't know if I'll ever be able to run like I used to, but if it's possible, I'll find a way, and if not, I'll find the next best thing. And that stuff about believing in yourself, it's not just Disney bullshit, it's a scientific fact that you're more likely to succeed if you believe you can. The good news is, even if you don't, you can kind of brainwash yourself with positive self-talk. It's a fake it till you make it sort of thing. I want to give a huge shout out to all the great Zero players I learned from, whose world record runs pushed me to levels I once thought impossible, especially Dogaby, Borshot, and Rainbubble. I'll link their channels in the description, you should definitely check them out.
I tip my hat to one legend to another.
I'm also releasing a sister video that shows the full runs of all my world records. Some of the longer fights, Hyperius, Master Yi, Voracidous, alone run nearly 40 minutes, so I couldn't include them all here. This video is already up for my highest tier members and will be public in a couple of days for everyone. But that's it, guys. I did it. I actually did it. The ultimate tribute to my favorite game and my favorite character in all of gaming. Here's a list of every raid boss world record speed run for Zero. No glitches, no exploits, no pre-stacking. I know eventually some of these records will be broken. I plan to break some of them myself, but at least at one point, I can say I simultaneously held all 10 raid boss world record speedruns for Zero. Here's the list. Terramorphous, Garnet Anarchist 3, 19 seconds, 23 frames. Vermivorous, Garnet Anarchist 3, 28 seconds, 49 frames. Hyperius, Garnet Anarchist 3, 9 minutes, 14 seconds, 12 frames. Master Yi, 9 minutes, 42 seconds, 17 frames. Pyro Pete, Garnet Anarchist 3, 34 seconds, 21 frames. Voracidous, Garnet Anarchist 3, 21 minutes, 6 seconds, 3 frames. Dexiduous, Garnet Anarchist 3, 4 minutes, 16 seconds, 33 frames. Ancient Dragons of Destruction, Garnet Anarchist 3, 1 minute, 3 seconds, 47 frames. Son of Crawmerax, Garnet Anarchist 3, 2 minutes, 8 seconds, 13 frames. Haderax, Garnet Anarchist 3, 5 seconds, 7 frames. And before wrapping up here, I want to thank everyone who supported me along this journey. A lot of you left encouraging comments telling me to believe in myself, that you expected to see me get all these records. So thank you all for your support. Special thanks to my members, and an extra special thanks to my Voracidous Slayers, Evan, Cass, Drake Solidor, Jonas Hedberg, Legan Weirdna, and Shadow96. Really appreciate the support, guys. And I hope everyone will follow me into Borderlands 4, where I plan to make a lot of content for the game, especially if it has characters I enjoy and a difficulty that I find challenging and engaging. Oh, and one last thing. Remember how I mentioned I found a much easier way to beat Master Yi? You can actually use a corrosive immunity and still safely strip your Roid Shield. I haven't fully tested it yet, but if it works for Voracidous, it should work for him too. So if you want the easiest way to break one of my records, that's probably it. Peace out.
I am eternal. Death will never capture me. My skills exceed his.